Coming to you from the Big Island of Hawaii, it's the Songs and Stories Podcast. And now, here's your host, Steve Roby.
Aloha and welcome to another Songs and Stories podcast. I'm your host, Steve Roby. Aloha and welcome. We've got a special interview for you today. Joining me on the phone is singer-songwriter Joachim Cooder. Aloha, Joachim. Good to have you on the show. Hey, you've got a concert coming up this Saturday, June 25th at 7 p.m. at the Kahilu Theatre in beautiful Waimea. Is this your first time to the Big Island?
It's definitely my first time playing my own show.
Oh, okay.
But I've been there many times growing up with my parents. We came over there because my dad recorded with the Pahinui brothers and Gabby Pahinui before that. And so we would sometimes go back to the place where they recorded that early record.
For some new fans out there that might not be familiar with your music, can you give us a brief overview of your career and some of the instruments you play?
Growing up from a really early age, I played drums and had my own bands. And then I did stuff with my dad. We went down to Cuba and did the Buena Vista Social Club. And I brought some funny instruments that the Cubans weren't quite used to, like this African clay pot drum called an udu drum, and then a Turkish hand drum called a doumbek. I started playing a lot of percussion stuff when I was playing with David Lindley, because him and my dad would get up there and it was all just two guitar players. So he handed me this hand drum that I could come up and play as well. That was when I was a teenager. Mostly was, content as a drummer and sideman and producer of other people's records. Then something changed when we had kids, and I started having to come up with songs and things on the spot for my daughter. She was very demanding and wanted everything had to have a story. Like if there was five coat hangers in front of us, then it was a mommy, a daddy, a sister, a brother, and what's their story? And I would say, and then I would have to start coming up with stories, and it was like a crash course in songwriting almost. And around that time, I started singing and playing my own songs on my electric mbira, which is like an African thumb piano.
Right.
That you can plug into a speaker and make cool sounds with.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I've heard that many times. It's a beautiful instrument.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's very soothing, and you kind of go into a little trance while you're playing it, and it's very, very satisfying.
I can see, yeah. So let's talk about your Kahilu show coming up this Saturday. What can fans look forward to?
Well, I'm very excited to be able to fly out a wonderful bass player from Nashville, Tennessee, named Mark Fain. And I met him, we toured together with Ricky Skaggs. Mark plays at the Grand Ole Opry all the time, and lots of bluegrass and old time music and country music. So he's coming from Nashville to join me, and I'm coming with the electric mbira, and I'll be playing a bunch of new songs that nobody has heard except for our good friends at the Kahilu.
All right. How cool is that? So it's just the two of you on stage?
It's just the two of us.
Oh,
yeah. Nice. It's hard. Once COVID came around, some of my band members kind of, they just weren't comfortable traveling anymore.
I understand, yeah.
I can't blame them, but I didn't want to do it just solo, because you kind of want to have somebody to play off of, and I figured, Mark would be the best man for the job.
Nice. That sounds good. Hey, speaking of your father, Ry Cooder, you appear with him on the recently released Get On Board, the songs of Sonny Terry and Brownie McKee, two of my favorite blues players. Can you talk about that?
Taj Mahal came down from Berkeley on the train, and they set up in my house in our living room, because it has. We recently moved to a part of town called Altadena, which is it's kind of near Pasadena,
Southern California.
Southern California, and it's this old house from the 1920s, and the living room has a really nice tall ceiling. We just set up a few mics, and the three of us set up in the living room, and it must have only taken 3 days. I think Taj maybe didn't even realize at first we were recording. It was so loose, and things songs have already started before it starts, the tape starts rolling. So it's my 3-year-old son at one point comes in and starts banging a measuring spoon on the piano bench. I mean, but it all works. Like, it's a very raw but really well done record. It was very fun.
Yeah. That's great. So I understand you have a new album in the works. I guess you alluded to you're going to be playing some music from that?
I will, yeah. My last record came out in 2020 at this point, and all the things because of COVID, it's an old story at this point. All the tours got canceled and everybody, we were all at home together, and so it was hard. It's been a very slow process with this new record. I'm a little over halfway done, but it'll be fun to try out some of the songs live and see how they all go over. But yeah, almost done.
Sweet,
almost
sweet.
Done.
Do you have a working title for it?
I don't. I maybe should reserve. I should probably not say anything because you never know if the final product, final end result might not even have what I think is the song. It's too. I might have to just wait on that.
Isn't that the way with most artists there too? It's like,
yeah,
it's different
exactly.
for book writers. It's like you have a draft, you have a working title that could change. But for musicians that I've talked to, one recently who's working on a musical for years, and I said, so what's the working title? Well, I don't have one yet. It's like, how can you start a project without calling it something? But I understand.
Yeah, you need to have something that kind of encompasses the whole piece. And it's not too specific. You don't want to I kind of like to keep it open. When you're finished with the whole thing, then you can look at it and say, oh, maybe this song title really encompasses the whole thing and doesn't, pigeonhole it.
Right. Sort of like Paul McCartney when he was working on Yesterday, he called it Scrambled Eggs, which was a throwaway, but, gave us a beautiful song in the end. Yeah.
You mean that was his... That was just what he kept saying when he would sing the hook?
Yeah, you need something to fill in the spaces, so scrambled eggs.
Amazing.
Yeah. Hey, you also work on film compositions, including one of my favorite surf films, since we're in Hawaii, called Riding Giants. Do you want to talk about your film composition? Wasn't that a great movie?
That is, I'll never forget seeing that for the first time with our song in it. It's the piece where it's one of the early big wave scenes that takes place in Hawaii. It wasn't the Northern California scene. That was something that I work with a friend of mine named Sonny Levine, and the two of us made a bunch of music with surfing in mind. And it kind of never really came out, and then somebody got it to the music supervisor of that movie, and it was like we could never have imagined it would have found such a perfect home when we were operating with less grandiose surf movies in mind, and then it went to the ultimate one. That was very exciting.
Yeah. So you've worked on a few others as well.
Yeah, I've done a few really interesting documentaries. One was called Charged, the Eduardo Garcia story. And he's like a Montana mountain man chef who is out in the outback and comes across a bear in a trash can. And at least that's what he thinks he sees. And he touches it and realizes it had been electrocuted and it's on a live power source.
Oh, no.
So when he touches it, all this current goes into it, basically like blows off his arm.
Whoa. And
he somehow is like such a strong, wild mountain man that he, with this blown off arm, makes his way back down into the town. And then it's his recovery and the changes of his life. And it's this whole, it turns out to be this pretty remarkable story, and it's snowy mountains and the imagery is very up my alley.
So some of your music is in that film.
I scored the whole thing.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I got to watch it tonight.
Yeah. Charged.
Okay. You have a new album too. Your latest release is called Over That Road I'm Bound. Talk about that. Will you be playing some of that at your Kahilu Theatre show?
I'll definitely be playing that mostly. It's all songs of the banjo player Uncle Dave Macon, who was, he was born in the late 1800s and took all this music from from when he was young that would have been coming through town in Tennessee, like minstrel show tunes and medicine show tunes and folk and blues, and repopularized that. He didn't become famous until he was in his 50s, and repopularized that for a whole new generation. And he's considered the first superstar of the Grand Ole Opry, and really is kind of the main, I think, architect of modern country music, and they're all such catchy, beautiful songs. And he was a wild banjo player, and I grew up listening to my dad play some of his songs on the banjo, and it came back to me when I took my kids over to see my parents, and he was playing some of them for them, some of those songs, and I was very taken. I said, wait, I know this, what is this? And he said, Uncle Dave Macon, you used to love this. And so I just started, my daughter got obsessed with it, and so I just started learning them for the kids around the house. And then it became a record.
How nice. That's fun.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
I'm so excited to come over there and see real people and play real music. I haven't done it, since 2 years. Maybe I've done one outside show in LA, but no other things.
So this is kind of like the first of a tour, or just kind of a starter show for you after the pandemic? I have one show on Maui, and then that's on the 23rd, and then I come to you guys on the 25th. So you'll be all warmed up with the Maui vibes. Exactly.
I can't just hit the Kahilu raw after 2 years. I got to have one warm-up show.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to the Kahilu Theatre concert this Saturday, June 25th at 7 p.m. Joachim, thank you so much for your time. Aloha.
Aloha, Steve. Thank you so much for wanting to talk.
All right. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Songs and Stories podcast. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. We'll see you next week on Songs and Stories. Aloha.